Let's get some more insight on this. I'm joined now by Betul Dogan Akkas. She is an assistant professor of Middle East Studies at Ankara University. Professors, thank you so much for being with us on the program. First off, I want to go back to that supposedly groundbreaking meeting that happened at the UNGA with Trump and the Muslim leaders. That was seen as a turning point, especially in the ceasefire negotiations. Your thoughts on that meeting?
So in the Middle East, since the 7th of October, but even before, since the day we had the occupation in the Palestinian territory, we have that different levels of responses from the states and societies of Middle Eastern community in respect to what's happening in the region. It's either about the genocide we have witnessed in Palestine, in Gaza, or any other political situation that we face in the Middle East that's bringing big struggles to the Middle East communities. The meeting with him it means a lot when it comes to an institutional, professional response to what's happening in Gaza. But most importantly, do we have equal partners in this communication, bringing a solid, a firm outcome for the peace, a sustainable peace in Palestine, in Gaza? The problem here, the policy that is actually tried to be imposed by U.S. regime or any other governance in the Middle East, like Israeli state, that's actually trying to impose their own agenda, their own interests, rather than the current situation in Gaza, a solution to current situation, and bringing a sustainable solution to that. So that's the primary problem for this meeting is not centralizing the situation in Gaza, but centralizing his purpose for the Middle East. It's either related to his policy making in the U.S. or his policies in the Middle East.
I mean, the reason why I brought up that meeting in the first place was because it was the first time that we saw these leaders collectively come together, where we saw an outcome with Trump putting forward some sort of a plan that would hopefully lead to a ceasefire. And we're seeing somewhat of a domino effect over the last couple of months of not only the public raising their voice, but also world leaders coming out and being more vocal about their opposition to what Israel's doing in Gaza. How significant is it when we hear the likes of Keir Starmer come out and say Israel has to stop, Israel must stop now?
So your point is very important. This meeting can bring an institutional response, definitely, for ongoing situation in Gaza, but it also represents the fact that these Middle Eastern leaders, they actually have a common point. They want to end the war. They want to bring a solution, a sustainable solution for people in the Middle East, for Gaza. Because the war in Gaza, yes, it has a tangible occupation, but what we see since the 7th of October, it has actually intangible kind of repercussions in other sides of the Middle East. We had an attack in Doha, but we have insecurities articulated to our lives in the Middle East, not only in Gaza. So this might bring a definite solution for maybe a short-term ceasefire or a plan, which is not the proposed one, because it has definitely structural issues, but we might have a solution with it. But what I see more importantly in this meeting, we have some leading powers in the Middle East who are trying to bring a different aspect to current situation. It's not a white or West dominated plan to Gaza. It is something more organic, more genuinely produced by Palestinians, which is actually led by Qatar, Turkey, and somehow Turkey and Egyptian voice in it. So this meeting was important to bring these voices together for the sake of Gaza. But how we can see a proper end to it, it depends on the negotiation between the actors, between Trump, Turkey, Qatar, Palestinian voice, of course.
How much of it falls on the plate of the United States, though? Are they calling the ultimate shot of what happens in Palestine?
In theory, they are quite important, as we all know. And in theory, their voice, their narrative is critically important. But what we see in the last 2 years, they speak, they had action, narrative based, but we don't see a proper outcome, neither in Gaza nor in Yemen. That's a big structural problem of international relations today, but especially in Gaza. Unfortunately, we have a UN dominated by the interest of the world leaders rather than being a voice of people who are in need, who are in the conflicted areas. So we need a new form of policymaking from UN, but I don't know if we can see this in the short term.
We've been, over the last couple of hours, discussing the role of the bodies like the UN, the ICJ. How does Israel's genocide case now that's standing at the ICJ test the credibility of these organizations and, more broadly, the idea of justice itself?
So, first of all, we have to accept the fact that not only for this case, but any other conflicts in the world, we never seen a proper outcome from an international organization, because none of them has enough power to impose a regulation on a state. But especially this case, because now in 2025, we are witnessing the genocide from the first hand with social media. We are there with these people, but we are not part of their death. So this is why I think this is a structural problem with their existence. Are we going to see a change, institutional change with their involvement? I think this is something we are going to speak more in the next decade. But what we see about their position, they are somehow a form of table, bringing people together, putting the interests and concerns on the table, but we are never leaving the table with a solution. It's rather a therapy group of leaders, but they don't reach an end with it.
Okay, Professor Betul Dogan Akkas, thank you so much for being with us here for our special coverage.